All right, everybody, it's 6:30. Thank you for coming out. We're all here to hear Eric Eaton from the National Weather Service give his presentation on hurricane talk. After that, I thought since this was the first time we were hosting this, if we liked it, we'll do a quick panel interview and some Q&A. We got Stanley Kite, Emergency Services Director for Craven County. He can tell you anything you need to know about hurricanes, Craven County, evacuation, shelters. He is our emergency management guru. Chad's here's not staying. We got our police chief right here, city manager in the back, fire marshals here. So we have a good depth of resources to ask some Q&A questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Really appreciate everybody joining us today. We are recording just the part up here. So if you have to step out, if a neighbor missed it, really wishes they could have come, we are going to post this to YouTube. So everything up here is being recorded, including the presentation. Just a show of hands, how many have been through a hurricane before? So we have a fair amount of experience in the room, but we also have folks that are new to the area that have not been through a hurricane. That's why we're here. This talk is going to focus on some of the things you need to pay attention to. And we start off, we're going to be looking up this way toward the screen. Continue to trust official sources. Focus on the impacts of the storm. Never, ever, ever just focus on the category of the storm. We're going to go over that over and over again. If you're going to focus on one thing, usually it's water, what is killing folks, and impacts occur well away from the center. As folks continue to come in, don't be shy, get up, move around a little bit. We've got a lot of brochures up front. We also have hurricane guides from the state of North Carolina, so we have a lot of handouts that are available for you to take home with you tonight. Other thing we want to mention in the back, the town of Havelock has done an excellent job. There's a little hurricane kit for folks that came on out. Be sure to grab one of those before you leave. Those were provided by the city, so really appreciate that to get people ready for hurricane season. So I mentioned in the beginning, continue to trust official sources. Our biggest challenge is communication and misinformation. People tease us all the time, and I know some of you have said this. Meteorologists, only job you can have and be wrong all the time. Has anybody said that? Or it must be nice to get it right half the time. In all reality, we've improved a lot over the last 5 to 10 years especially. This is our challenge. Social media, a lot of hype. This was taken after Helene talking about the next storm. Here it comes, not good. This is rare. There's a lot of noise out there. If you follow this, you're going to know about every storm, but you're also going to know about all the storms that never impact us, and you don't need to worry about it. Creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of mistrust. A lot of reasons why people think we get it wrong all the time is you're looking at the wrong resources. So if you focus on anything, official sources like weather.gov, that's the National Weather Service who I work for, and hurricanes.gov. Those are your two main resources. Our local media does a good job as well, but official sources. You don't need to worry about the noise. Just focus on the official sources that you know and trust. I mentioned I work for the Weather Service. We live in your community. I live just down the road, or our office is in Newport off of Roberts Road. So trust somebody that goes and shops with you, goes to church with you. We work 24/7 to support you. I get paid the same tonight as I am with my young voice over to my right as I do during Florence. So it doesn't benefit me to hype anything up. I get the same pay. So please trust us. Now, you might say, well, Mr. Eric, I have to say that, right? I can't be from the federal government and just say, trust somebody else. I always like backing things up with statistics, and it's pretty easy because we save everything. So this is some information before Helene made impact in Western North Carolina last fall. This was a warning that was sent out a day or two before the storm itself. They were already getting some rain well ahead of the storm, and highlighted some important words: incredibly dangerous situation, potential to be a once-in-a-lifetime event, consider temporarily relocating to another location. Very strong language. We do not throw around words like that unless we mean business. So the forecast is accurate. Our challenge is making sure people understand it, get it, and believe it. More proof. This is Helene on the left. This storm, 3 days before it happened, was not a storm. Let that sink in. 3 days before Helene made landfall, it was not a storm. 15, 20 years ago, we would not have been able to accurately predict a landfall like that. On the left is a graphic showing that the expected landfall as an M, which is major hurricane in the Panhandle of Florida, Thursday afternoon. On the right is showing the I hitting the Panhandle of Florida. There's going to be nuances of the forecast that are not right, but by and large, it's not a forecast issue. It is a communication issue. So please, if you remember anything, weather.gov, hurricanes.gov. One of the most popular questions I get is, what about those spaghetti models or the European model or this model or that model? Guess what? We look at it all. We take all of that information and we make a forecast on it that is by far the most consistent and also the most accurate forecast. So more proof, and not to call anybody out for being in our community for a long time, but it'll help us kind of understand this graphic. So who was here in 1985 or remembers Hurricane Gloria? All right, be proud. We got a lot of experience in this room. So Mr. Stanley was here, and if I were a warning coordination meteorologist back in the mid 80s, I would tell him 3 days before Gloria that the center of the storm, there's a little dot on the map, not hundreds of miles across, just the center, would be somewhere from Savannah, Georgia to Washington, D.C. Pretty big wide goalpost in the mid 80s. 3 days out, that's about the best we could do. This is our average error for 1985. Who was here in 1999 with Floyd? All right, so in Floyd, I would tell Mr. Stanley, all right, the center of the storm, again, the little dot on the map, would go somewhere between Charleston and Richmond. Much better. But still, that's a pretty wide goalpost. Now, last year, 2024, I would tell Mr. Stanley the center of the storm on average would go somewhere between Greenville and Wilmington. Vast improvement on the forecast. Please trust us. We care about you. It's the most accurate forecast, but I kind of talk too fast. It's the most consistent forecast. We don't go like this and that. How can Stanley make a decision for the county or help the county make that decision if the forecast is all over the place? That's why we don't look at a specific model or the spaghetti plots. We look at all of it and make a very accurate forecast. So I hope that convinced you. The accuracy is there. The challenge is you coming to a forum like this, hearing my information, and then remembering it and sharing it with a neighbor. So one thing to keep in mind, we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes. This forecast cone shows where the center of the storm is most likely to go. It is very skinny over the last couple of years because it's drawn based on error, average error. So it's not going to be really wide if it's a big storm and real skinny if it's a small storm. It's just based on our error, and we keep getting better and better and better. So it's getting a little skinnier. If you live anywhere near that path, you should be paying attention. As Florence got toward our coast, we were actually getting out of the path of the storm because it was accurately projected the center to make landfall down in Wrightsville Beach, but we were still impacted. Impacts occur hundreds of miles away from that cone. So to help out, we superimpose some watches and warnings on that map now because some people were thinking that it was an in or out thing. I'm in the cone, I gotta really worry. Oh, it's down in Wilmington now, I don't have to worry about it. No, no, no. If you're anywhere in the vicinity of that cone, you should be paying attention. So please pay attention if you're near the cone. Everybody looks at that dot on the map. This is Floyd, but tell you what, at our coast, we're getting rain and wind and rain and wind, hour after hour after hour after hour. And oh, by the way, here comes the eye in the center of the storm making landfall. It's not all about landfall. It's important, we watch it, we track it, but those storms are hundreds of miles across. So if you're new to the area and we tell you it's gonna make landfall here at this time, keep in mind it's a huge storm. Our impacts can occur 12 hours, 24 hours before it even gets here as making landfall. That's another thing that kind of catches people off guards. So I mentioned two websites, weather.gov and hurricanes.gov. We're right here down the road in Newport. So if you add /Newport, you can get our local site. A little slogan with that, if it's the weather you love, weather.gov. All kidding, and usually I get more laughs. You don't like that? Weather you love, it's weather.gov. In all honesty, you pay for this. Everybody in this room pays $4 a year per person to fund the National Weather Service. And you just might say, well, Mr. Eric, I've never even heard of the Weather Service. I just get my forecast on this phone. Well, guess what? Something has to go into this. Satellite data, radar data, weather models. That's from all of us in this room paying our tax money. So why not just get it directly from us? There's no ads. You've already paid for it. Please look at it. If you need any more convincing, we have other resources. Social media is a really good resource for information. Could be good, could be not so good. We try to focus on the good. You can make a difference as you sit here today in your community by sharing that. When we get a storm, if you share this, then your communities can be well prepared instead of saying, sharing somebody else's weather page. And again, when I say us, local media does a good job as well. National Weather Service, Hurricane Center. We're on Instagram, X, Facebook, pretty much anywhere. Just search NWS Morehead City. On YouTube, where we're going to put this presentation, on the lower left, you can go look back at our prior briefings, exactly what the county gets. It's not a 15-second TikTok video, but it might be 5 or 10 minutes, but it's very good information. So there's not a lack of information out there. Your job is just to focus on what's official, what's most important, and what's most accurate. One thing you can get on our website or social media is you have at your fingertips the same thing the decision makers in our county have, and that's our briefing. You have that. Where else can you get that? The mayors, the emergency managers, everybody making decisions in the county is looking at this, and you have access to that either via social media or our website. And we'll pinpoint things like, okay, Helene might not impact us very much, but if we're going to see something, it's going to be Friday or Friday night. When is it going to happen? So we definitely try to pinpoint that as much as possible. A show of hands if anybody's seen this graphic. It's called the Tropical Weather Outlook. That's real good. And it might not look like that. You might say, Eric, that looks kind of crazy. I watched Jerry Jackson or Les Still or whoever you watch, Jim Cantori. Everybody shows this, local news, Hurricane Center, or Weather Channel, AccuWeather. This is the Tropical Weather Outlook. It's issued 4 times a day, and it shows you a low, medium, or high chance of something happening. Trust me, you've seen it in the news. If there's any chance of something happening, it's on there. You don't need to worry about this, but now is the time of year I would kind of check it once a day. You don't need to check it 4 times a day. Just once a day, check in. Hey, do we have anything coming? No, just move on with your life. But something to be aware of, it will show you potential storms out into the future that could impact our area. Since hopefully you've kind of reiterated with you weather.gov and hurricanes.gov, there are a lot of useful resources I won't go into, but arrival time of wind, when is the strong winds going to get here? How high will the storm surge be? How much rain will fall? All of that is on our website and the Hurricane Center site. So these are resources for you to use. Please use them as you see fit. The reason why we're doing this today is we are in the midst of hurricane season. We had a change of philosophy about 7 years ago when we started this. Traditionally, we used to do hurricane talks in May. Do you prepare for hurricane season in May? Most people don't. When do you prepare? When the storm comes, right? About 5, right? We know, be honest. Once it starts getting busy, right? So we're realistic. So we had changed our format. We present in May, in June, in July, in August, in September, in October, because our season's very long. We've had storms here as early as May. The peak is traditionally September 10th. So if you're new to the area, who's a big NFL football fan? Ready for football? NBA, right? Halftime is September 10th. Halftime is September 10th. So when the kids go back to school and it's after Labor Day, we are not done with hurricane season. We haven't even gotten to halftime. So please remember that. A lot of our storms occur in September. We've had ones toward Halloween into the months of October with Matthew. So just know it's a long season. It's not too late to be prepared, but now is really the time to start, kicking in. You can see that graph really starts to ramp up from about mid-August into the month of September. If you were not aware, we do get a lot of storms in our area. Some history. This is downtown New Bern in 1913. A lot of people focus on Florence, and Florence was a very impactful storm. We had Ione in the 50s. We had the 1913 hurricane. It has happened before, and it will happen again. It's just a matter of fact where we live. So a lot of storms, a lot of history in our area for being hit. We don't have control over that. I can't control the weather. I don't know how many storms we're going to have or if we're going to have any this year. But you do have control over making your hurricane plan. So that's what we want to focus in on instead. This is a great resource. If you know our website already, all you need to add is a /hurricane prep, and that QR code in the upper right. If you scan that, that will take you directly to it. If you have no idea what that QR code is, that's why my sons are here today. Afterwards, they can show you what the QR code means, and you can log on to your phone. In all seriousness, we're laughing, we're joking. We had some heavy rain earlier today, but we're pretty stress-free. Kids aren't back in school yet. After 4th of July, we're kind of in the middle of summer, and we're having a good time. Think about your life and the time you've made decisions. When you had a lot of time to think about it and plan, you made good decisions. When you had to be reactionary, sometimes it was a good decision and sometimes it wasn't a good decision. Planning now is key. Storms are stressful. If you wait, we will run out of supplies. And I don't have stock in bottled water or batteries, but we'll run out. It happens. The other thing to think about is I understand that not everybody can go out and get everything today. I get that. And that's why we're talking about it in July. This weekend, you get your bottled water. A couple weekends from now, you get your canned goods. That spreads out the financial impact and also ensures that you're going to do it. Just break it into parts to make sure it happens, because it is something we need to pay attention to. So it's a 3-step process. Step 1 is your risk. What is your risk? Are you in a low-lying area? Do you flood? Weather's part of it. Who lives in your house? I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. My parents were up in Maryland, and now they relocated down near us. So my vulnerability is higher. I've got 3 teenage kids, a cat, a wife, and parents that live nearby. So by the way, I stay, they go. So my vulnerability is a little bit higher. Do you have somebody on oxygen? Somebody that has medical needs? Do you have pets, young children? Whoever's in your home is who you need to think about. So when we're talking about a kit, when we're talking about making a plan, it's not just you, it's not just your spouse, it's everybody in that household you need to think about. Now that you've thought about those folks, we talk about the kit. In the back is definitely a good start, so definitely grab some of those resources. Ground level's 3 days. That's old terminology. 3 days is better than 0 days, but that's bare minimum. That's ground floor, at least that. Really want you to have at least a week of supplies, food, water, medicine, and remember this part, anything you need to be on your own for a week. Think about our society. You need something, just get it on Amazon. It'll be here in a day or two. Go to Walgreens, CVS. We're so used to just go down to Walmart. You need paper towels? I'll get it on the way home from work tonight. Not going to happen in a storm. So please, contact lenses, medicine, anything you need, cash on hand. That's all good stuff to have. Please prepare for at least a week to be on your own. Storms are different. You're not going to be able to go around like you usually do if you choose to stay. All those resources and more are on that website /hurricane prep. The last step, please have a plan to leave. Even if you say, I'm never going to leave. I'm going to be here. I've been through every storm, Eric. I'm never leaving. I like shaking in the back. No, that's good. Have a plan to leave, even if you don't think you're going to use it, because you would rather have a known hotel or family member to visit and know what to do so that if you need to leave, you just know where to go. Raise your hand if you have company this summer that comes and visits you because you live by the beach or just because you're a cool place to visit, right? So all those hands that went up, go visit them. Hello, hurricane's coming. I'm returning the favor. I'm going to come visit you. And if you can, have a couple places to go. Again, my plan A was Maryland. Plan A is gone. So now plan B, South Carolina or the mountains. Helene, people in the mountains could come here. It's never Goldsboro or just Raleigh or Kinston. It depends on the storm. Sometimes those places are fine. Other times those places are worse. So kind of have a couple options for sure. And the last point I want to make, Mr. Stanley and others that have been in emergency management for a long, long time, I'm a decent meteorologist, but I don't know everything, so I get tips from them. A shelter is a last resort. A lot of people think, oh, I'm gonna wait it out, and if it's really bad, last second, I'm just gonna sneak on into a shelter. Shelter's not a Holiday Inn or Hilton. It's a safe place to be, but it's not comfortable like your friends that come down and visit you at the beach each year, or the hotel in Raleigh or Richmond. So kind of keep that in mind. It's certainly a safe place, but it's not going to be as accommodating as a family member or hotel. So we're going to end this presentation with what to focus on, and it's not that. Raise your hand if you're familiar with this scale, category scale, right? But we're all All right, keep those hands up if you or your spouse or your coworker has said, I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 3. I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 4. So this is a great scale for winds because that's all it is. Was I scared when Florence was a 4 and I lived 3 miles from the ocean? You're darn right. Am I saying not to pay attention to this at all? No, it's important, but it doesn't tell us how much rain we're going to get. It doesn't tell us it's been raining forever the last couple of weeks. It doesn't tell us how big the storm is. It's going to sit over us for 4 days. What side of the storm we get hit on. It only tells us how bad the wind's going to be. So please do not make your decisions just based on this. Another reinforcing point, my memory, the kids can vouch for this, it's not as sharp as it used to be. So we had Chantal a couple weeks ago in Raleigh. What was the category rating of Chantal when that storm moved through Raleigh and it caused devastating flooding? It must have been like a 3 or 4, right? Because that flooding was bad. What was Chantal? A depression, barely a depression. Thank you. And another one. Now, Florence was bad. That had to be probably off the scales, right? What was Florence when it made landfall in North Carolina? A 1. A 1. So for new residents, the storm a couple weeks ago was barely a tropical depression when it produced very heavy rain. And parts of Raleigh, their second highest river levels since Fran in '96. We can have a thunderstorm here in Havelock. We were talking about this earlier. It sits over us and gives us 5 to 10 inches of rain. It's going to be an issue. So please, pay attention to it. Mr. Eric didn't say, oh, he said not to worry about that category 5. That's why I stayed here. I just emphasizing it is only wind, nothing to do with rain and all the other things. So if you're going to focus on something, this is it. Water, 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 water. Helene killed a lot of people with wind, more than we've seen in a long time, and water still killed more people than anything else. About 85% of deaths statistically are water related. Flooding, I don't care who it is, flash flooding, river flooding, whatever you call it, water's water. Very, very powerful. And a lot of those deaths occur in cars. If you just don't cross flooded roads, you're going to be in good shape. If you decide to stay, stay. If you decide to go, stay away. Don't be out on the roads after a storm for a long time because it can take a while to get back. So that's what we're going to end with. These are the things you should be paying attention to, not just the category. And where we stand, our biggest threat is water, whether it's flooding or storm surge. So that is downtown New Bern. That is during Florence. So if you're new to the area, a lot of people refer to Florence. It's hard to imagine. I can't imagine it was 7 years. Time is just going by really, really quick. It's hard to believe it was 7 years ago. And that's why we try to do different things. So that's why this crazy pole is here. You will know that this is only the 3rd location this entire year where we could fit a pole this tall. So thank you, City Hall, for having really high ceilings. So with storm surge, we issue watches and warnings for storm surge. It can be very, very high. So this is a map it's hard to see, but right there in the middle is Havelock. And I try to do a wide view, and up to the top is New Bern, and then Merriman and Harlow and those places down toward the south and east are very vulnerable. So that's a scale. Anything in blue in a category 3 storm, which is a reasonable worst case scenario. 96 Fran was our last one, is 3 feet. So we issue watches and warnings for 3 feet of surge. That's just blue. So to give you perspective, that's about hip level. 6 feet of surge is very easy. There's yellow shaded areas. So if you're in Havelock, any of the low-lying areas by the creeks, doesn't just have to be the Neuse River. You can have 6 feet of water. And Mr. Stanley and I were talking, not Mr. Stanley, he can't answer this question, but what was the approximate height of the surge in New Bern and Florence, roughly? Very good. A little over 10 feet, about 10 and a half feet. You were in New Bern? You were here. So 10 feet, I'm a big basketball fan, so I used to say, Mr. Eric, a 10-foot high is the standard basketball hoop, higher than the orange marker here. That's how high the water was. And Mr. Stanley and I were talking, that's the level of the water. That doesn't include waves on top of it. So we bring this poll not to scare anybody, but to say, hey, when we're predicting 6, 3, 8 feet of surge, these are in dry locations that are usually dry, that are near low-lying areas. So you don't have to be on Emerald Isle. if you're along the Neuse, if you're along any of the creeks in Havelock, if you're in downtown New Bern, and any of those low-lying areas that 9 times out of 10 are dry, but if there's a surge of water that gets pushed up it can be this high. And we bring these things, again, not to scare, but to kind of give you more of a visual representation. I zoomed in more to Havelock, a little bit more. Again, the Neuse River, I mean, I love taking the ferry over to Cherry Branch, Minnesota Beach ferry. That area saw around 10 feet. Any of these creeks into Havelock can see quite the push of water. And then it also doesn't allow water to drain, so that can really enhance some of the flash flooding we get. So storm surge is number one. A 1B would be flooding just in general. When you get that amount of rain, whether it's from surge or combination, with things that high, if the creek is that high, nothing can drain like it usually does, and everything backs up. So that's the problem. Keep in mind, cars can float in less than 2 feet of water, and a hurricane's category is not an indication of how much rain we're going to have. Again, Florence was a 1 because the winds were weakening, but the rain of 20 to 30 inches was certainly very impactful. If you do choose to leave, it can be hard to get back. It's not to discourage you from coming back, but Kinston, by new sports shops, and some of those areas can flood days after the storm, and it can stay that way for quite a while. So just be super careful. If you're on, out driving, you really shouldn't be driving at all. Try to reinforce this with this point. I know flooding has been in the news a lot, so I'm sure you're more accustomed to it this year, knowing how bad water can be. But you will see on the news people driving through water. It's very powerful, but the point I want to convey with this image is you don't know what is under that water. You just don't. And think about our rural area. Even between here and New Bern at night, it's dark. It's dark. It's very dark. So you don't know the depth of the water or if the road exists. And somebody pointed out that white pipe on the right. Well, we don't tell you to stay or evacuate. We just give you the information. But when you say, hey, I'm in a great location, I'm fine, Stanley and his guys and gals may not be able to get to you if you have a medical emergency when the road's washed out like that, and that water pipe is cut off. So I hope you have bottled water. Those are things we point out. So turn around, don't drown, never, ever, ever, ever cross a flooded road. Wind is statistically a lesser risk than water. You still can have fallen trees. We lost a lot of people in Helene, specifically like southeast Georgia, southwest South Carolina and North Carolina. But the bigger impact from wind, or not bigger impact, but an impact from wind can be those long-lasting power outages. If I'm without air conditioning, I might complain, but I work in the yard a lot. I play basketball with Matthew. I can sweat a little bit. It doesn't bother me. If that air conditioning's off 10 minutes for my mom, who's around 80, it's a big deal. She's got asthma. It's just a big deal. She knows. When I was working on her HVAC unit a couple weeks ago, she said, what's going on with the air? Because she knew, it was off. So long days and weeks without power because of those high winds is certainly a possibility. So we get a storm, you decide to stay, or it's a tropical storm and you're not going to leave. Have this on, have your phone on, make sure it's not on Do Not Disturb. Even better, have a NOAA weather radio. It's like a smoke detector. We'll wake you up in the middle of the night. My boys can attest to that. You will not miss it, because when I'm at work and the thing's going off, sometimes it scares them to death, but they know about it. So if you have that, you're going to get those alerts. You're not out shopping in the middle of a storm, but you might be by the window. And by getting that alert, you can get downstairs, away from windows, because those tornadoes can often occur very, very quickly. And the first bands that reach our coast can produce tornadoes. So just because landfall's 12 hours from now doesn't mean that those first bands can't produce storms. So we're just about done, and we're going to turn to the panel discussion after the next 2 slides. You all should be commended for coming in here mid-July. I know you have 20 things going on. You're prepared. You're going to make that kit. I know you are. Take a step back and don't forget about after the storm. Statistically, we're actually losing about half our lives now because of things like carbon monoxide poisoning, and also things like electrocutions and people falling off ladders and things like that. So please do not let your guard down after the storm. If you think, if you've never used a generator before, know how to use it, not using it in a garage. If you've never done a lot of yard work, let your grandkids or your kids or your neighbors clean up stuff. You don't need to do that. The water is extremely dirty. Don't be walking around it. We have septic in the area. We have lost lives due to infection. So again, we're doing all this planning, and that's great. But keep in mind, about half our lives are lost after the storm. So be smart, even when the storm itself is gone. So this is our last slide. What can you do now? For the new people, you might say, oh my gosh, storms all, flooding, he's bringing poles and all this stuff. We'll take a step back. Look at where we live. It's awesome. I know it was 96 today and 100% humidity, but most of the time it's awesome. We live near the beach, very great people, great food. I love eating Eastern North Carolina food. We live in an awesome area. It's our responsibility to be prepared for what could happen. Once you're prepared, then you just go on with your life and you live it, knowing that you're prepared and you're ready. You don't have any control over if we're going to get a storm or not, but you do have control over making your kit, getting the water this weekend, canned goods in a couple weekends. You do have control over telling your neighbor that says, I'm not going to leave because it's only a 1. Hey, by the way, we're going to get 20 inches of rain. You do have control over that. So please share this information, and you can certainly share it with folks with our YouTube channel, NWS Morehead City. All of this is recorded. So if you think it's good for somebody else, please share it with them. That's my email. If you can't tell, I'm really into weather. I am also really into helping people. That's our job. So if you think another venue would be acceptable to a presentation like this, let us know. We've been in churches, food pantries, anywhere. We do this talk anywhere that will receive the people well. So please just send me an email and we'll certainly make it happen. So at this point, I think we're going to have a few folks come up, maybe make a couple words or take questions from the county, and then Lauren from Duke Energy. While they come up, if you have any questions, let me know. Before you leave, I know some folks may need to leave. Be sure to grab one of the hurricane kits that the city is providing, and these brochures are up front as well. So at this point, we'd be happy to take any questions from anybody that has them. Mr. Stanley from the county, and then Duke from Lauren from Duke Energy. Yes. Okay, and the Red Cross person can come up. Yes.
I got a radio that's like great, just in case. Is there a specific station I need to tune into for that?
So, and just for privacy purposes, we're only recording what's up here. So whenever you ask a question, I'm going to repeat it so the online audience can hear it. So the person in the audience asked, they have a crank weather radio, and they asked if there's a specific channel to tune into. It'll be the New Bern transmitter. I think it's a 425 is the megahertz on that. But if you just Google NOAA weather radio frequencies in North Carolina, you can email me. We have people that come down to my office and I program it for them. But it's going to be the transmitter out of New Bern. I think it's 425. You're welcome. And again, if that doesn't work, just email me. I program them all the time.
Can I follow up?
Yes, you can.
I would just recommend to anyone to have what's considered a NOAA weather radio receiver and treat it just as you would the smoke alarm system in your house. It can stay silent all day long and it's not needed until they activate it. It activates just like when they activate the emergency alert system, they interrupt broadcast, TV, radio. But with the NOAA weather radio after the event, even if we have a civil emergency message, these guys can help us do that. In addition to WIA and other messages that, if the infrastructure is seriously damaged, that NOAA weather radio may be the only line of communication that we have to broadcast data out to.
I've never heard of that before. Where would you find something like that?
Walmart, Lowe's, Target, there's a lot of vendors that have them. Ace hardware stores. They're relatively inexpensive, but again, it is one of the safest tools you can have in your house, in addition to your smoke alarm, as far as I'm concerned.
No, you're good. Yes.
How many shelters do we have in Havelock?
So the question in the back was for sheltering in the county or Havelock specifically?
One.
Let me just say that as part of the shelter staff that works with the county, we have what's considered primary and secondary shelters. One primary shelter is currently considered when we open or issue evacuation orders for residents in various areas. You have one primary shelter in Havelock. You have two in the Newbern area. One of those is the Ben Quinn School, which also is pet friendly. It's the only pet friendly shelter that we have that's currently available. And then we have the Vanceboro Farm Life Elementary up on the far northern end of the county. You don't have to go just to the shelter in Havelock. If you want to select one of the other shelters, you can. We also have the, the Creek, what's the other school? Creekside. I'm sorry, Creekside Elementary is one of the newer ones that's been added on. And let me just say this, I think Eric brought out a very strong point that these shelter locations, they're not creature comfort at all. I wish we called them areas of refuge instead of shelter, but they're actually a place for those people who need to get out of harm's way to just take cover until the event's over with. They're not comfortable. There's a lot of misconceptions of what's going to be provided, especially in the first 24 hours.
We try. We provide the cots, we provide the blankets, we have snacks, we have water, and we try to make it comfortable for you as much as we can. We do have mental health, we have health services, and we have our shelter workers.
And I will follow up that the reason why there's only 4 on the initial opening is because, again, we have very limited resources. Very limited resources. So when you look at the number of people it takes to staff a shelter and manage that shelter, and then have an exchange shift of people to rotate out to keep a continuous operation, that cuts the numbers down very fast. It's not like we don't have other places we could use, but we don't have the staff to support that many more until days later into the event, or you get more shelter managers into here.
And we try to bring in as much as we can, but unfortunately with Hurricane Florence, it was a little difficult. I do admit that. Stanley called me to ask me where I was at because I live in Fairfield Harbor. He was looking for me, but I was already in Durham. Because what I do for the Red Cross is logistics. So I make sure that they have everything that they need. Try my best.
Yes.
Can you explain the impact of how fast or the speed of the storm can rise the category?
So the question from the audience was the speed of the storm, how it impacts everything. So it can impact it so many different ways. So Florence would be the best example for a slow moving storm. It can really enhance the rainfall because you're having it day after day. It can enhance wind effects because normal trees that wouldn't fall now fall over and get uprooted because the soil is very, very moist. A storm that's really compact, but then it starts to spread out and slow down can expand the storm surge over a much wider area. So for Florence, we had storm surge over a huge area versus a small, compact, fast-moving storm is like a buzzsaw. It won't affect the whole area as much, but that immediate area that's impacted will have very high storm surge and very high winds, not the rainfall because it's moving through. So storms are personalities. We're all different, and that's why you can't predict necessarily what's going to happen with one based on what happened in the past. Each one is unique, and speed is hugely important. Affects rainfall, wind speed, surge, just about anything. That's what Helene made Helene so devastating. It was about twice the average speed of a normal storm. So very similar to Hazel in the 50s, all that wind penetrated much farther inland than it would if the storm was moving very slow. Really good question. Yes.
How can you determine when to leave or if it's too late to leave, say it's traffic? When do you decide, like, okay, I'm going to turn around?
So the question from the audience was, how can you determine when to leave? Being cognizant of potentially getting stuck in traffic, things like that. I'll let you start, and I can add. Or I can start, and you can.
Basically, throughout the historical data and the studies that are done, looking at the population models, where the center of populations live, the transportation corridors that we have, with 70 being your primary evacuation corridor from this area. If you live on the other side of the county, it could be 70, 17, and 43. There's a built-in time window. If you notice, we don't like to issue evacuation notices until we know we have to based on that local impact statement. For example, looking at Florence, we had to use a 14-hour window That 14-hour window was before the arrival of gale force winds and rain. So that you should be on the road and on your way. And I'm gonna add another little part of the equation. Don't plan on stopping in Uber. If you're gonna get the road, you're gonna start moving, and you're going to evacuate, get west of the I-95 corridor. Everybody says, why are you saying that? I'm saying that because if you look at the construction models, everything east of the I-95 corridor was built in what's called a wind zone 2 rating. So what does that tell you? Historically, most of the heavier winds are east of the I-95 corridor. It doesn't mean you won't get heavier winds west of I-95. But I'm saying this as an emergency management coordinator from the perspective of survivability. I can't save the property. But if you work as a partner, and if you do evacuate, get west of the I-95 corridor, your chances of survivability increase a lot versus you taking an additional shelter still in the high impact zone. I'd also add to the comment about the track. Everybody, based on data, all these Google and quantum data people looking at wireless data for Craven County during Florence, when we give the evacuation order that day on that Tuesday morning, about 85% of wireless devices, now we don't have any way to say it's who, but 85% of wireless devices being monitored tended to be moving westward. When the 11 o'clock weather forecast came out that evening and said, oh, by the way, it's now definitely going to Wilmington area, 37% of those that were moving west turned around and started coming back. I got to say, that's playing risky business with your life. And the reason I'm going to stand my ground on that is because we ended up from about 10 p.m. to about 8 a.m. the next morning doing over 1,600 water rescues. That 1,600 people that made poor decisions. You know you live in that floodway, don't gamble with your life because, honest to God, I'm so thankful that we ran out of resources. How we managed to get through that part of the process without losing anyone is strictly a miracle. It wasn't because we were superheroes or anything like that. Chief Thorne and others can tell you, we had every resource, including federal, state, out of county, out of state resources maxed out. And even the Cajun Navy came in and embedded themselves with some of our local responders. But there shouldn't be 1,600 people getting flooded and standing in and on the dining room table and crying with 911 that they're now having to go into the attic because snakes are coming through. You shouldn't put yourself in that position. Make a plan today.
I'll just add on the weather side, there'll be, there's graphics that show when like the strongest winds will get here. So you'll usually have a couple days to get on out of here. Evacuation orders, following those, and then time of day, trying to leave at a time that not everybody else is leaving, but you'd be able to get out of here. Yes.
Good question. You mentioned weather.gov hurricane. I use what on my phone, my radar. It also basically, I want to know if it's actually tied into the same system as weather.gov and hurricane.gov, because I get a lot of, it basically tracks where you located at in the state. So if I go to South Carolina and say my position is in South Carolina, it'll tell me if a hurricane's coming in that area. If I come back to North Carolina, it basically tracks my position.
Sure.
So is that the same, does it follow that same pattern or same plan as hurricane weather.gov?
So really good question from the audience. The question was, he's got an app on his phone and it tracks weather very, very well. Is it the same as weather.gov or hurricanes.gov? Yes and no. Almost everybody uses hurricane watches and warnings. Like they don't want to say something different. So from your app to your local meteorologist to the Weather Channel or AccuWeather, they're gonna display the same hurricane information. So that would be the same. The difference would probably be in the forecasting. Some use a straight computer model and there's no human input, and we don't have an official app. So some of it may not be. So that's why I always say fact check it with the local weather service just to make sure. But you're gonna know about it, but getting it straight from us is gonna kind of keep it condensed. And that weather.gov, you mentioned South Carolina. If you just do weather.gov, The reason why I started with that is a lot of us come and go. We're not just in Havelock the whole time. Weather.gov, and you click on Myrtle Beach or Greenville, South Carolina, or Columbia, you're going to get that local office. So weather.gov is definitely the way to go. Any more questions? Yes.
The last hurricane in Havelock lost every single telephone in town. Landline, cell phone, everything.
So there's a comment from the audience for Florence. Yep. So for Florence, he was just talking about communications. You know, a lot of us are glued to these. So landline, cell phone, a lot of those can be out for a long time. When power lines are down or cell towers are down or get overloaded, communication can be really, really difficult. So that's kind of a fact of life. If you stay, communication and life can be very difficult for a while. Yes.
Should people bring their own supplies to the shelter? They rely on just supply the shelter and put in space for their own things. If you did you bring 2 or 3 days worth of supplies for
So that was an awesome question. I've never heard that
It
one.
depends on what you're bringing,
I'm just going to repeat it real quick, and then you could go. So the question from the audience, just so because we're recording it, a great question from the audience was, if you come into a shelter, should you bring your supplies, or what's kind of the protocol? And I'll let the lady from Red Cross answer.
We ask you to bring, like, if you take certain medications, if you eat certain food, we ask you to bring that with you. But you can't bring a lot of things with you because we just don't have the storage space, you know, to bring to the shelter. The other thing that wasn't mentioned, when you're making your kit, we also recommend that you make copies of all your important documents, because if it gets wet, gets flooded, then you're screwed, because how are you going to prove that you live there in that area? You know, Stanley can tell you with Fairfield Harbor, you can't get through the gate without having a sticker. So you have to make important, you know, make copies of all your important documents, put it in a Ziploc bag, keep it somewhere safe, put it in the, you know, fireproof, waterproof safe. That's your best bet. Making sure that you be able to, you know, call your insurance company, call whoever you need to call, and make a list of all your medications, because the pharmacies may need that, especially if you're in the shelter and Red Cross needs to assist you with your medications. The nurses are going to ask you what medications you're on. I won't ask you, but the nurses will ask you what medications you're on. So that's one of the recommendations also.
That was a really good question. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up. If you can remember readync.gov, there's a overwhelming wealth of information at readync.gov. And if you go there, it goes through the whole process. You can see all the traffic information. It keeps live updates when roads are closed. If you get ready to hit out at the last minute, you've made a poor decision, waited too long, you can at least maybe find your correct route out of the area from there, because when we put those notices in, when roads go down, that's posted, shelter information is posted. So even if you're traveling in another county, you decide, I really need to get out of this weather, you can see where those shelters are at. But again, I'd like to go back to what Jim said. The infrastructure is going to go down. It's inevitable. When these things are throwing tornadoes, when they're throwing floods, when they're disrupting roads, we can't resupply with fuel. Can't get certain things done for a number of days. Those towers that operate your infrastructure are going to go down. Now, depending on your carrier, depending on if you know how to text, I will say Starlink has made a lot of great improvements and enhancements to help in emergency situations, but I can't stand here as a county employee and promise you if and when that's going to happen. We're working on it. We're working with them to try to make sure if you can get your phone recharged, which again, you'll see some ideas and tips on how to do that, then you might be able to text off of their equipment if everything else in the area is down.
And to follow up what Stanley just said, if you're in a shelter, what Red Cross does have now across the United States, we have 3 gigantic trucks, what we call IEEE trucks. And these trucks are able to come into anywhere. They went to Helene, they went to Florence, and they went to Matthew also. If you do not have internet service, we're able to upload with Starlink and get you internet service. They're able to get you, you know, charge your phones up, anything that you may need. So that's something that we do have. I try to bring the truck out at least once or twice a year to different events that we may have, if I know ahead of time and the truck is in town. Right now, the truck is in Texas. So it varies from, time to time, but we do have something that we're able to use, and we partner with Verizon.
Lauren, I'm going to put you on the spot here in a second, so get ready.
It's getting out easy.
But just like the lady mentioned from the Red Cross, I really appreciate the additional information because these talks are designed to not put you to sleep, and we get through it as quick as we can. So we don't have as much expertise in those areas as the Red Cross does. So Mr. Stanley mentioned, what was it again? readync.gov. So please leave here with a guide today. It'll be a lot of the information the lady from the Red Cross mentioned, because you can't cover it all in 30 minutes. We kind of hit on the highlights, but this is a great thing that the state put together.
Everybody needs one.
Everybody, and they're up there. So what she was talking about and Mr. Stanley was talking about, grab that. And so for Lauren, since I prepped you, she's from Duke Energy. Can you a lot of people talk about communication issues and things like that. Can you just kind of talk about some of the stuff you all work on in the event of power outages?
Yeah, so I'll talk kind of general terms since there are 3 energy providers here in Havelock, but Duke Energy serves most of the residents living north of Highway 101, not all of them, but most of them. But primarily before a hurricane event, we are working with the data collected by the National Weather Service, and our forecasters are using that information to project where we're going to see the most outages. And that way we can look at the wind, look at the flooding projections, and really stage our crews strategically. This specific area is actually served by our Moorhead Operations Center. So they're technically located in Newport, but the crews are typically staged at the Newport Fairgrounds in Carteret County. So that's where you will see that electricity trucks coming this way after a storm event. We do ask all of our customers for Duke Energy, but for all the other providers as well, to report your outages. You can do it website, text messages, or phone calls, and always remind people in your family that any down power lines, assume that they're energized. Those are some decisions that we can make for children and pets and other family members that can keep them safe. And so as the storm comes in, we're working closely with Stanley and his group, responding to any inquiries from emergency management personnel in this entire region. And then after the storm, you'll see our crews. A lot of people will say, oh, a Duke Energy truck drove through my neighborhood, but I still don't have power. So what our crews are doing are they're going out and looking at the damage, looking at the equipment necessary to make the repairs, logging that into our system so our local staff and our contractors know what needs to be done. And that's actually a process that expedites things for us as well. I think a fun fact is Hurricane Helene, we had 23,000 contractors working with us to restore power to just Duke Energy customers. That doesn't include any of the co-op customers or the electricity's customers. So it's definitely all hands on deck. Everyone at Duke Energy has a storm role. So we'll definitely be present in the community as things come up, and encourage you always to report the outages that you experience on our website. And there's actually a really neat little map on our website that you can use, and you can zoom in on your neighborhood, see who's out. It's not always perfect, which is why we ask you to report your outages, but those restoration times we'll post on our website as well. And you can pretty much zoom into a customer level and see your specific residents on those maps. Happy to answer any questions as well afterwards.
Yes.
I do have one. So planned outages, how big does the storm have to be before you actually go, okay, we're going to turn off power because just for safety purposes? Can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question is for a planned outage associated with the storm. That's a tough question because really every event is unique. A lot of the substations that had issues during Hurricane Florence, like the substation in Newport, for example, we've put flood walls around, which we anticipate will have an improvement on the situation, but that's not really a question that I can answer when those calls are made. But we do restore power as quickly as possible, and that's another good point, is we restore power to customers that can receive power. if your house has been flooded or had significant damage from vegetation, you'll need to work with the city or the county, depending where you live, to make sure that your home has been inspected before we can restore power to your home. And that's a safety feature that we require as well. But during those events, we'll work really closely with the city and make sure that as they're doing their inspections, as the electricians are coming in, that we're coming in as close after that as possible. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
Now, I understand everything or just about the hurricanes. What about the tornadoes? We got hit in 1964 and it damaged the airport, it damaged New Bern, and it damaged the little rural community where I had my trailer, or we had our trailer. There was no warning. And it took just about 10 hours before the Red Cross could come with drinks and coffee and stuff. Has it somehow improved?
So I'll take the weather part, and if anybody wants to, you all let me take that one. So it's a very good question. I'm sorry for that, the tornado in the past. So the question was a tornado associated with a hurricane
Right.
in the 60s, and there wasn't little or no warning back then, and has it improved? The answer is yes. So I relate it back to technology. In the 60s, I think TV was coming about. I still remember black and white TV when I was super young. And you remember the cable. I still remember changing the dials. And then our kids don't have this now, but the corded phone. And now we're streaming movies through the air to devices that have more computation power than our computers 10 years ago. So yes, the technology has improved. The warnings have immensely improved. With that said, it is still Mother Nature. In tropical storms and hurricanes, the tornadoes can come very, very quick. So if you live in a vulnerable area, step number one was, what is your vulnerability? You may need to consider relocating a little quicker, a higher threshold because of that vulnerability. But yes, the warnings come quicker. Yes, they're more accurate. Our technology is through the roof compared to what it was, but it still can be really quick acting. So having that NOAA weather radio, we didn't have that then. Having a phone, if you have a phone, making sure that's on and not turned off. Yes. So there's many ways you can get those warnings compared to what it was before. And,
I'd like to address the
Yes.
response. The response capabilities have significantly improved since the 60s. In fact, for the ones that don't know, we coordinate with our local fire chiefs. Have each area of the county broken down within a 5-mile district. And we have a notice of inclement weather or something that seriously happened. And we ask them to help us by doing what's called windshield surveys. So the fire, the police, the sheriff deputies, and other emergency service groups go to the area, infiltrate it. First and foremost, they're looking for anybody that might need rescue. But they're also giving reports back as to what the damages are, what the impacts are. So we're activating resources much, much faster now than what we were then. And that's how we decide who needs help. Red Cross may be able to put you in the.
We try to be boots on the ground within 2 hours of a tornado, as long as it's safe for us.
We're there in minutes.
Yes, they're there in minutes. We're there within 2 hours, depending on where we live at. Unfortunately, with Craven County, I don't have a lot of volunteers in this area, but I do have those I can tap into. So we do try to be on the ground within 2 hours. And that's the same thing with the fire call. We're there within 2 hours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you. Yes.
For Lauren, can you please explain to residents, if they do lose power, and they are probably prone to a flood, to go to their panel and at least shut their power off once they lose power? Because what are the ramifications of that if their power switch is still on in the panel? If you know what I mean, especially
What
if
to say,
you're
the residents should cut their primary off, their main breaker, in case these lines get re-energized and they're still flooded, so cut that primary off.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that
Save-
everybody
save their
knows if you lose power, you go to your main breaker and shut that power off. Especially if you have a generator that's on transfer, which may not necessarily work. And then when they actually put power to your house, you may be electrocuting a lineman out there on the line. trying to get power to your house.
Do you usually say anything or no?
Well,
You want to repeat?
you know, we can't usually make recommendations about what you do on the customer side, but I'll defer to Stanley here for protecting your residents and the fire side.
Your question about cutting the main off in your residence. If your house has sustained significant damages, your house is flooded. It leaked up into what I call the carpet wetting, then the wiring under your floor is probably already wet. Yes, it's a good idea to cut that off and wait until you get it inspected and get somebody to be okay to turn it back on. Because the reality is, not just Duke, but all the energy companies are going to be working very hard trying to get primary infrastructure back online as soon as possible. And if you happen to be on one of that line that they're trying to bring back hot, then it could cause you some additional problems in your home, especially people leave their stoves on when the power goes out, things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of problems that can happen by leaving that breaker on. So if your house is significantly damaged or flooded, it's a good idea to cut that main breaker off until you know things are safe.
You never know. You never know. Yes.
Yeah, I put a plug in for Parker Creative Electric Co-op because a lot of the residents of Havelock are on Parker Creative, 4,000 or 5,000 members on it. But just to let you know, Parker Creative right now is doing right-of-way clearing. If you're doing right-of-way clearing, to make sure the trees and the branches are not on the lines. If you've got a problem with what they've done with your trees, you want power or you want trees, one or the other. So if you've got trees, if you've got vegetation vines that are growing on the lines, and you're on Parker Creative's lines, don't hesitate to call them up and say, hey, also when the storms are coming, the co-ops do us also. We will be bringing people from other states will be coming in, stay out their way, let them do their work, and let them do what they have to do. We have got 2 substations, the one over by the college and the one that's down on Hollywood Boulevard that services the north and south parts of town. So they've got a great outage map. If you don't have the app on your phone, they've got a great outage map. You should get text messages when the power's out. You should get text messages when it comes back on. And you've got representatives on the board of directors with part of the Preparedness membership. And I'm on the board of directors for the Havelock community. So we'll do what we can to get things back going again.
Yeah, and if you have vegetation issues as well, you're always free to give Duke a call if you're a Duke customer. We always remind people that we can't cut vegetation outside of our easement. It's a 30-foot easement on distribution lines. So that's 15 feet on each side. And you know how big some of the trees can be here. So yeah, if you do see vegetation management from any electric company in your neighborhood, feel free to go out and ask them some questions about what they're doing in the area. They'll be happy to speak with you. We work with customers that want more of their trees cut, and we work with customers that want less of their trees cut. But Stanley wants more trees cut. But we do what we can do within the bounds of what we are legally able to do. A lot of times if you have a tree in your yard and it's on your personal property and the only thing it's hanging over is your service line to your house, we won't come onto your personal property and clear your vegetation since that's private property, unless what's on your private property is, posing a significant threat to other people in your area. So it really is also your responsibility as a homeowner to maintain the vegetation around your power lines. I see a lot of people plant really nice trees that now look very lopsided because they planted them under the power lines. So we're always happy to work with people in the community, and a lot of times in those sensitive areas, we try to do the vegetation management in the winter, and that's better for the vegetation, and it's a lot less shocking to the community that might have, that attachment to that vegetative area.
So maybe I have an odd question. We were stationed here in 63, and I just came back 2 years ago. I had a house for 50 years in Las Vegas. Now, everybody talks about the generators. Is that advisable to get one of those?
So the question from the audience was being advised or not, is a generator a good thing to have for storms?
I mean, this is all different to me now.
Can we address it? I'll address it. I'm not scared of
Give
it.
it Eric.
I'll give it a go. All right. My advice is if you're going to invest in a home generator, make sure that you consult with the right people to make sure you got the right switches. You need the automatic safety transfer switches. Don't let anybody talk you into going out there and doing some yard engineering on a cord with a plug and a plug and a plug, because you can create problems. You can burn your stuff up. You can burn your appliances up. If you don't have the right size generator, there's all kinds of different people that have different formulas, but it depends on what your experience is. I would suggest have someone come from a good company to look at, assess what you need, and then make your decisions from there. Even if you don't buy a whole house generator, you might be able to get them to separate things within your panel box. And if you just run vitals, essentials like your air conditioning, your refrigerator, your stove, hot water heater. That's the main power eaters anyway.
And make sure you get a reliable electrician.
And a home generator kit is not that expensive. To me, it's a good investment in your home.
I mean, we love it here. And when my husband passed, my kids said, we'll take you back. So I bought a house here in Havelock. And I just want to know, because it's so easy to buy things that you don't really need.
Yeah, that's great advice. Hiring a professional, getting it done right, it can definitely be a good, and welcome back.
Thank you. We have not been used to any of that.
Yeah, maybe you're keeping them away. You've been here 2 years. Keep on staying.
We are not leaving anymore.
Yeah. Any other questions? I know we're getting just past the hour mark. I think that's it. If you're like me, I was always shy asking questions in front of everybody. So it'll take a while to break this stuff down. So just come up. Before you leave, please grab a hurricane guide. Please grab some resources. And also in the back, the hurricane kits by the city. Really want to thank the Red Cross, Duke Energy, and Mr. Stanley with the county for coming.